Hi, everyone. I'm Summer,
I'm Karie.
and this is Hopelexia Podcast.
Join us to talk about sex, drugs, and self-improvement.
I don't know. Technology is not my friend right now. I don't know. Nothing is my friend right now. I'm tired. So I guess we're just here to do a life update and accountability update, right? Hey, you mentioned working out. How's it going to the gym?
I am currently going 3 times a week. I was going 4, but then I got sick and now I'm trying to build back up to it. But I went 3 days last week and I started it's called a transformation challenge with Orange Theory, and it's like a body fat loss challenge. Like they put you on like the scale thing that tells you like your body fat percentage and like your muscle percentage and all that kind of stuff. So that's exciting and traumatizing a little bit.
Traumatizing, right?
But you know.
So I'm sorry, my brain is like not working today. So is that helping your stress levels?
Yeah, sorry, my phone keeps shaking.
I see that. Like I'm watching you do this.
Like I'm trying to be like subtle about it, but there's like no way to be subtle about it.
It's fine. We're just gonna acknowledge all the things.
It's this, sometimes life is messy like this episode, and that's okay.
And it's okay to be messy. It's just the way life is.
I'm pretty sure it's my middle name right now. Just Karie Messy.
Karie Messy. No. I mean, we can do a legal change if you'd like. I know how to do the paperwork.
I might have to, just so I can start explaining it to people.
Right.
Like why I am the way I am. Yeah, it's been helping a lot with like the stress. It gives me something to like, just gonna let the camera wobble. Gives me something to like focus on. Every time I laugh.
I'm not high. I'm not high enough for this.
I'm not high at all. This is just who I am as a person. Yeah, it gives me something to look forward to every week, and something to like focus on, because sometimes it's the only thing that gets me through the week. So that's nice. Like everybody there is super friendly and like helpful and really encouraging. So that's super, super nice for me.
Oh, that's good.
So
I need something. I need something to help me get through the week, because at this point I'm not sure how I'm getting through any fucking day.
Dude, I don't know how you are either.
Oh my God.
You want to talk about it?
I don't even know where to start. Okay. First of all, let's start here. Okay. So when I was born, my legs. This is where we're starting.
We're going all the way back.
A long, long time ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So when I was born, my legs were twisted, right? And they had to be splinted. But then, and I've always asked, but okay, but what was wrong with them, right? Because it didn't seem to be a bone problem. Splinting them seemed to fix it, right? So it wasn't a bone problem. It wasn't, a muscular issue. So apparently now I am gathering and understanding that apparently it was like my ligaments weren't holding my joints where they're supposed to be. And my parents, and I remember as a kid, like when I played sports and you had to do the physical for sports and stuff, I remember the doctor telling them like, okay, she's going to need extra support. Like, so we always had like, the knee braces and the ankle, all this shit. But like, they never told me like that this was an issue I had. This was always just said like this is something everybody's joints do. Like I genuinely did not know that other people don't go through this shit. Okay? And like they would make jokes about my hypermobile joints and my translucent skin, but like I did not know that was like legitimately indicators of some concerning things that can seriously fuck with your life.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to deal with this knee that some days won't even let me walk for several years. They never said a word. Now, mind you, that story about my twisted legs was only ever told when I was a kid, it was only ever told to people as a way of them explaining how I was just so much work when I was a baby and so how high maintenance I was. So like it shouldn't surprise me, but I'm like, wouldn't that be something you should have a fucking conversation with your kid about? And maybe
Yeah.
they thought, and like I will give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they thought because I hadn't had any significant problems for a long time that it wasn't a big deal. In any event, my knee's been doing this shit to me for a few years now. Finally learned how to navigate it, and now my wrist has decided to start doing it too. So now I can't hardly carry things. It's like I literally went to sleep fine and I woke up and my wrist was swollen and out of place. And yeah, I'm like, what the hell was happening while I was asleep? I don't know. I went on an adventure. I don't know. Like literally my knee happened while I was walking upstairs. So stairs are evil. Stay away from them. They will end you.
That's fair. That's
So
fair.
anyway, so physically not doing great here. But yeah, mentally, oh boy. So, we've talked about my psychopathic child. So part of the safety plan that has been created with the help of multiple practitioners who have treated her is she has a studio that's her room. It's one little studio cabin that's her room, and she does not come in the main house because it's literally impossible to keep everything that is potentially dangerous locked up away from kids, especially as they get to this age. So the solution is she has her stuff out there, and then anyways, so she breaks into my house on a semi-regular basis. So I still have been I have a whole bag of stuff that she normally breaks in to come after, because a lot of it is she steals devices. And so she steals things to power those devices and use those devices. She will steal them from anyone. It's literally why I can't take her anywhere. She is stolen from friends. She is stolen from family. She will steal from stores. I can't take her anywhere. Or we end up with police involvement. Last time I took her to the public library, the cops were called. It was the whole thing, right? So I take all of that stuff with me anytime I leave the house. So none of that was there, because what she does is she gets on and she talks to on the internet. She talks to predatory adults. She has stolen my dad's debit card, my mom's credit card, my debit card. Because she gives all this information to this predatory adult that she talks to in a different state. It's a whole thing. So she doesn't have any devices anymore, but I don't really know what she was doing in my house. I've noticed a few things that are missing now. So anyhow, she broke in my house last time by pushing the air conditioner in through the window unit air conditioner. And this time, so that has been removed. So this time the stovepipe is temporarily run through a window. So this time she pushed that in, and she damaged a lot of things. She damaged the window. She has broken the drying rack that we use for laundry. One of my older sons had to come help me actually reinstall the thing, the stovepipe last night, so that we didn't freeze to death. It could have a fire because it was cold. So I spent all day trying to track down supplies to be able to run this thing through the wall, which was not a project I was ready to do. This seems to be the pattern, is that I have all these projects that I need to do in order to get my house to where it's, an actual house. But every time I get in the middle of them, she destroys things, or she steals things that are needed or whatever. And so then I have to pay for all of that stuff. And so I'm perpetually overdrawn. I have not caught up financially since the last time she was inpatient, which was August?
I think so,
something like that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just really hard. And they're like, I don't know what to do. There are no options. But she's
Yeah.
getting more, I don't know. So anyhow, I've got to do some more. So a lot of the things that I wanted to do are all being having to be put off because I have to add more security. Like I've already had to install a security bar on the door and padlocks on the doors and all of this. And now I've got to start basically barring every window in the house. And it is a house that was built for a lot of ventilation, so I don't have to run an air conditioner, so that there's a lot of windows. Like the majority
Yeah.
of the wall is windows. So I've got to go expend money to go do that because I mean,
Could you plant a bunch of like cactuses under the windows?
but if you get something right, they would have to be tall, right? And that takes a long time. Because if she gets something to climb on, then she's just going to be climbing over them, right? Or putting them on there. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that like I had stuff planned to plant under there. Like I had raspberry bushes and blueberry bushes, and I had them potted in the house to set out in spring. She broke every one of them. Every one of them is gone now. Yesterday. So can't do that. But I mean, but that also means because of her history of trying to poison me, any food that was already open, anything like that, has to be thrown out because there's no way for me to know if it's safe.
Yeah.
So it's interesting being both prisoner and warden at the same time.
I don't think interesting is the correct word.
I don't know that
But
English has the correct word, so this is the one I'm going with because it's
yeah.
just a constant what the fuck because you're like, what do? Nothing works. No amount, the cop told me to physically assault her, the last police officer we dealt with. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so that's not really going to do anything other than get you called out here to arrest me. Like, I don't see how that's really going to be productive, but thank you for your advice, sir. I mean,
Because then you just end up with two kids that have to go somewhere, and then she's gonna be someone else's problem, and then it's gonna be traumatizing for everybody to be put
right.
in the system again, or for the first time, or whatever. Like,
Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. So far there's not any physical, in case anybody's worried, there's no physical threat to my other child at the moment. So that's not really a concern. But
good.
still frustrating and I don't know what else to do because, I still am trying. I would like to keep her out of jail. So that maybe she can do something productive with her life. I don't know. But there's literally nothing you can do with them until they turn 16. Like all of the programs, all of the academies, nobody will take them until they're 16, which apparently is a federal funding thing. Because that's the target. 16 to 24 or something is the target age group.
That's weird. I wonder why.
Who knows? It was probably arbitrary.
Probably because you can't give a lot of like the stronger medications to like younger kids. So I wonder if maybe like that was it, or like if they just like age of consent or something.
Probably that because these aren't like treatment facilities. No treatment facility will take her. Like I've taught. She's been inpatient. Three stints inpatient for facilities involved. One was just like a respite, like a 1 week respite program, while we tried to get her placed in a facility. And basically they all say the same thing. They're not there to treat psychopathy. They're not going to. If she is a threat to herself, then they will admit her for acute care. But a threat to others is not their problem. And that Medicaid will not pay for that sort of treatment. And so unless I can private pay they're not going to keep her.
That's
So
dumb.
basically, the rich have access to care, and nobody else does, because that's the American way.
Of course it is.
So, and I mean, honestly, and we, I've gone through looking at the troubled teen industry and all this nonsense, because that's literally the only option that's being presented to me now is like wilderness therapy. And I mean, it's not really, none of them seem to actually be therapy, but
Yeah, it's just like hard, like summer camp and terrifying for
I
everybody.
mean, as far as the wilderness thing goes, like she has experience with wilderness camping, so that part
That's true.
actually won't be. It will probably be like summer camp to her. Um,
Doesn't help.
right. It's not going to help. So, like, that's why it's being recommended to us, is just a way to have her out of the house, to have some safety and peace for a minute. But I mean, in any institution, there's also genuine abuses do happen.
Yeah.
And when you have a kid who pathologically lies about everything, I have no way to know if she says everything's good, that everything really is good, or if she says that something's happened, if that's true either, because she has a history of making false allegations against people.
Um,
So it's just like a giant question mark.
it hurts my brain to like think about all this. So I can't even imagine like what it is to experience it. Like I I don't have like any words.
I don't think
Like,
there are any. Like, there's just
yeah.
nothing. There's nothing to say or do. I mean, we were lucky, I guess, in one way, because her foster care involvement did, lead to her having early intervention. I mean, it was assumed to be rad at that time because of the history, but so, the protocols are essentially the same at
Yeah.
those stages. So, I mean, I guess in one way she's fortunate because she got that. So we're not in as bad of situation as we could be or would otherwise be, but it still ain't great.
Treating Rad alone is hard enough. Like I've worked with kids that had Rad and like teenagers, and it's miserable like trying to work that kind of treatment plan. And I can only imagine like working with someone that's a psychopath would be like 100 levels higher for like acuity. Like,
It's I don't know. I'm at a loss. I don't even know what to do, honestly. I'm just literally just trying to get through it.
but
'Cause I don't
when
know.
she turns 16, like you have a plan though, right?
Yeah, when she turns 16, she wants to go to Job Corps. So if she hasn't done anything really terrible, like, that did result in criminal charges, because they won't deal with that there. If she does that, they won't accept her. So we can get her accepted. If she can't get accepted to Job Corps, there are other, like, the academies, right? Like Thunderbird Academy and things like that, which are like baby boot camp. Those are options. That's
When you
really
say
it.
like the criminal charges, would that include like misdemeanors too? Or
I
just
don't
like,
know. They're not very clear on that, right? Like, they're really vague in their description, and when they talk to you about it, they're really vague. So I think a lot of it probably is at some of the discretion of the admitting
yeah.
person. I don't know what their title is, but so I
I feel
think
like stealing would probably be like a no-no for them, just because like
Yeah,
that's
it
so
is.
hard
And
to
if you do
like,
it there, they will prosecute you.
yeah. So
And that's, but she's in luck on that because I mean, they've, the police have really refused to take, out of the 3 police involvement situations, they only took a report one time. They refused to take reports over the theft of the cards and all of that because we really needed a police report in order to get the money replaced on dad's debit card. And they wouldn't take, I mean, nobody would ever take the police report. We had to, like, all the money she had saved went to him to try to pay back some of it, but it didn't cover everything. Um, so, basically, their position is as long as the victims are all family, this is a family problem. And it's my responsibility to deal with it. But he did tell me, he's like, but don't worry, when she finally does manage to kill you, then we'll prosecute her. Yeah.
gee, thanks.
I know. I'm like, oh, thank you. That's so reassuring.
Oh,
But yeah, so that was, which it really reminded me of, because that's the way domestic violence used to be between partners, right?
yeah.
If a woman was being abused by her male partner, it was literally considered it was just a family matter and you didn't do anything. And we had to have special laws enacted in order to change that and force um, authorities to actually do something about those situations. But when the violence is perpetrated by the children, it's not really it's not considered serious at the same level, and there's no public will to change that. And I think part of it is ultimately most people think if a kid behaves in this way, it's the parents' fault, and so we deserve whatever we're getting on some level. um
I
and
hate
I
that.
Right. And I do understand that the idea of psychopaths being born this way is terrifying to people because it means there's nothing we can do to stop it. Right. And so we would rather, there's that human tendency to, okay, we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist and that it's not happening this way. And that makes us feel better, even though it's not reality. Right. So I think that's a lot of what's happening because it's not even just an American problem. I've been talking to families from all over the world that have the same problem, even in countries with very developed medical and mental health systems. They still don't have systems to provide safety or support for parents with psychopathic children. So I think there's just a very human thing that's happening of we want to pretend like this isn't really what it is.
Yeah, which I wonder how much of it is like the desensit
Desensitization? Is that
that's
how
a
you say
hard
it?
word for me to say today. So like a lot of like true crime and like murder, like all of that, because like people are so comfortable with it, like with the adults, but like when it's like a child's case that happens, like I was listening to a podcast the other day and they talked about these 2 teen girls that like murdered their mother, and they were like, well, the mom like had to like have done something and blah blah blah, and everybody was just like chill about it. Like the 2 daughters got sentenced to like prison, but everybody just like, I'd never like heard about it. I only ever hear about like the adults, so I wonder, like, does that make sense? Am I
And
making
I
sense?
I think that it is related to that, but I think in a lot of ways it's not necessarily desensitization. I think that there has been so much sensationalization of those very horrific um
Yeah.
crimes and very, those particular cases, which are not the majority of psychopaths or sociopaths, depending on which, that particular person is. But so there's this idea in people's minds that that all psychopaths are this way, which makes that super scary to realize fully 1% of people who are born are going to be born with psychopathy, right?
Yeah.
And then it's an additional, the estimates are anywhere between 3 to 5% um, develop sociopathy, which similar traits and behaviors, but caused by their environment. Um, so I think because we do have, like, this feature of all of the worst case scenarios, that it does trigger that fear, and so then we want to put the blinders on and pretend
Yeah.
that it doesn't just happen that way. So, oh no, it has to be something. um which incidentally, that the series recently about Dahmer, I did end up watching it. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I did end up watching it, and that was one part I was very disappointed in. They led right up to it, like where he was having a conversation with the psychiatrist, and and even mentions the sexual deviance, like, and he was saying, like, I think I was born this way. Like, they had the opening, the intro, to talk about how this happens, and then they cut to something else and just left it there.
Yeah.
And like, you had the opportunity to do something useful with this, and you didn't. So that made it feel even more exploitative than I had already been hearing
Yeah.
about. Because there isn't, like, to the general public, there isn't a lot of public information. Like, we aren't told this stuff.
Yeah. It's like a lot, and I feel like with a lot of like the new like serial killer like series and movies and things, it just kind of makes it worse.
I do
Like
think
how
it's
people
going
talk
to.
about it,
I think if they're going to
because they
make
keep
anything related to these, um whether it's a serial killers or whatever, I think if they're going to do that, they have an ethical obligation to go into that. This is how this happens.
yeah, I agree.
Be-
And I
because
wish they would stop, like, I feel like this is kind of like I wouldn't say like a minor thing, but I wish they would stop casting people like famous people that the general public feels like are really like hot and attractive, because then it just makes them like sexualize them. Like the amount of people that have been like sexualizing Jeffrey Dahmer like in the show, and then like him as an actual person be like, yeah, he's actually kind of cute, and like I probably would have like.
And the very disturbing thing about that is that's not even a new thing. When
I
you
know,
think
like,
about, like, when when Dahmer was on trial in, what was that, the 90s, when
Richard
even Ted
Ramirez.
even Ted Bundy,
Mm-hmm.
back when that happened, like, they had genuine, like, groupies that were really trying to, like, so, like, there's just something very disturbing when you
So
think
gross.
about that,
Or
there are really so many. And I mean, Charlie Manson was the most popular inmate ever. Um, he had I the fetishization of these people is disturbing, and I don't quite, like, I've done some reading about it, but I know still haven't been able to wrap my head around what
like
is going on in there that makes that happen.
there was a guy, I don't remember what his name was, mostly because it's not important because he was garbage, but also because I just generally can't remember. Um, he was like in college or high school or something, and he was pissed that these girls wouldn't go on dates with him, and pissed that he couldn't get laid and like all this other shit. And he wrote a manifesto and went and shot up his school and did like a mass like murder. And
Yeah.
there's girls, and that was like a couple decades ago, because he had like social media and stuff, but like there's still girls to this day that like sexualize him and make like fan art like of them with him. Like, that's disgusting. Like, he wrote a manifesto about how he couldn't get laid and how he hated women, and you want to imagine having sex with him?
Because it's not about him. They're fetishizing
Oh,
him and his
no.
crimes, which may be some sort of twisted
I hate it.
link to power.
It
Because
makes me feel icky. Because
yeah.
he's a mass
Well, because it
murderer.
is. Because it is.
Like, as a member of like the kink community, like there are some things that are like kind of like that, like the I can't talk today.
it's okay.
Yeah,
Fetishization.
that one.
Fetish.
Yes.
I can't say it fast. My tongue is not working. But yes.
Like, there's role play that's like that, but everything is consensual, everything's planned out, and like you have safe words, and you know all the things, and you know the person, and you know everything about it. But like, these people are fantasizing about like actual murderers that would legitimately kill you, and not just like role play.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm gonna choke you. Like, no, that's not what's gonna happen. No, it freaks me out.
Same.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And to be sure you never miss an upload, make sure you turn your notifications on. And please come join us on social media so we can continue these conversations in between episodes. You'll find us at Hypoxia Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.